Greetings and welcome to the United States Transhumanist Party Virtual Enlightenment Salon. My name is Gennady Stolyarov II, and I am the chairman of the U.S. Transhumanist Party. Here we hold conversations with some of the world's leading thinkers in longevity, science, technology, philosophy, and politics. Like the philosophers of the Age of Enlightenment, we aim to connect every field of human endeavor and arrive at new insights to achieve longer lives, greater rationality, and the progress of our civilization. Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to our U.S. Transhumanist Party Virtual Enlightenment Salon of October 1st, 2023. October 1st is International Longevity Day, a day that we are celebrating today, and it also happens to be the International Day of Older Persons. Now, this is quite a deliberate coincidence because we would like to convey the point that biological aging and chronological aging need not be the same. And people who in the future become chronologically older could also become biologically younger. So we want people who are chronologically older to become healthier, to live longer, to be free of the terrible diseases that often accompany old age today. And to this end, throughout the world, there have been numerous demonstrations in support of greater longevity, in support of the scientific and medical research that are needed to realize this vision within our lifetimes. Joining us today is our distinguished panel. We'll start with our U.S. Transhumanist Party officers, our Director of Visual Art and the new chairman of the Arizona Transhumanist Party, Art Ramon Garcia, our Director of Publication, Zach Richardson, our Director of Longevity Outreach, Ben Ballweg, and we have several other officers joining us in the YouTube chat, including Jason Geringer, our Legislative Director, and Daniel Tweed, our Director of Citizen and Community Science and 2024 U.S. Vice Presidential candidate. And our guests for today are from all over the world. We have some significant time zone differences here, so we are going to go from east to west in terms of the order of our presentations. Joining us from Israel is Dr. Ilia Stambler of the International Longevity Alliance and VETIC. He has organized a lot of the behind-the-scenes coordination for International Longevity Day. Joining us from Germany is Felix Werth of the Party for Biomedical Rejuvenation Research. Joining us from Belgium is Didier Coeurnelle of HEALS, the Healthy Life Extension Society, and also of AFT Technoprog, which is the French Transhumanist and Techno-Progressive Association. Joining us from Spain is Dr. Jose Cordeiro, who is our foreign ambassador in Spain and our technology advisor. He also represents the Millennium Project and Transvision. Definitely a true Renaissance man. And I think we are going to also be treated to some special guests from San Francisco. We're currently joined by Melissa King of the HealthSpan Action Coalition, as well as chair of the board of the Longevity Escape Velocity Foundation. And she is just fresh back from an in-person event there that involved a lot of luminaries within the longevity field. So maybe we'll surprise you with who is there, but hopefully we'll be hearing from a number of distinguished activists within our cause, our wonderful movement that we have here today. So thank you very much to everyone in attendance. This is truly going to be a phenomenal panel. And now I would like to give the floor to Dr. Ilia Stambler, without whom this International Longevity Day would not have been possible. And Also, I will mention Dr. Edward Hudgens of the Human Achievement Alliance, who is here in the YouTube chat, and hopefully we'll get an update from him during some point in this salon. But for now, let's turn it over to Ilia, and he has some videos to share as well. So, Ilia, please go ahead and tell us what has been happening today.
First of all, I'll try to share my screen, or maybe not. I'll just use the visuals that were available to Plato and Aristotle. So just mainly my hands and face. Basically, the history of the Longevity Day starts in 2013. The International Day of Older Persons is older, I believe, from the 1990s. And in 2013, we at the International Longevity Alliance had this idea, so perhaps we could somehow latched onto it, to not to say parasitize, but to synergize with this initiative and actually introduce the rejuvenation, the pro-longevity agenda into the International Day of Older Persons. And not to dilute ourselves, so we named it in a different way, International Longevity Day, so we can both go together and a bit separately from the mainstream aging rights community. And that's how it's been going from 2013 for 11th year now. In our best years in 2015, we had events in 40 countries. Altogether, we had hundreds of events. Millions of people were exposed through some viral videos. And of course, during the COVID times, it was more difficult, but still this tradition survived, even as on Zoom meetings, some private conversations. But now, thankfully, thanks the powers that be, we now can meet together live in person. So in this year, ILA, International Longevity Alliance, encouraged people to go outside, to meet, to actually demonstrate. As we know, demonstration is a very effective advocacy instrument. It allows you to reach out some circles outside your activist community. It allows you to attract press. It allows you to attract decision makers. Every self-respecting social movement does demonstrations, so we tried this as well. I think the last actual demonstration for life extension was in Brussels in 2012. That ILA gathered together and actually demonstrate. But of course, there are also demonstrations by Felix in Germany. So now we joined all our forces together, and we had proper demonstrations in 5 countries, all of whose representatives are here. In Brussels, organized by Didier; in Germany, in Berlin, organized by Felix Werth; in the United States, in San Francisco, organized by Melissa King; and in Madrid, in Spain, organized by Jose Cordeiro, and by my modest self, organized in Israel. And a part of that, we had 5 more gatherings, smaller ones, but just regular meetups in 5 more countries, in Romania, in Canada, in Montenegro, in Brazil, and I think also in somewhere else, which I currently forgot. Let me go over my notes. In Finland. Sorry about that. So 5 more countries. In 10 countries we had events. I think it's a great way to unify our forces, to exercise our organizational skills, our outreach skills, what you call the community building. So that's what's been going on, and I'm very happy about it. Of course, you could always do better. For example, here in Israel, we didn't have too much press because a lot of other demonstrations are going on. So maybe they thought that's just another demonstration, instead of understanding that's the most important demonstration in the history of demonstrations. But generally, we had some publications in the main press media and some interest from decision makers. So it's all good. Everything counts. So could be better, but I think we did excellent. And I hope everybody else so did too. That's my report.
Yes, excellent. Thank you very much, Ilia, for that report. And it's quite hopeful as well, because this groundswell of demonstrations throughout the world can help convince policymakers, public figures, and the public in general that this is a cause worthy of paying attention to. This is a cause that is growing. This is a cause that has people on the ground willing to demonstrate for it. And hopefully, politicians and other opinion leaders are going to figure this out and are going to pay attention to our constituency to an increasing extent over the coming years. And one of the most effective political activists in the longevity field has been Felix Werth of the German Party for Biomedical Rejuvenation Research. And I'm pleased that he is here with us today. He has an image to share of the demonstration that transpired. So, Felix, could you please discuss this demonstration that took place today and your impressions of it?
Yes, hello everyone. So we did a demonstration today in Berlin, and the motto was that we demand more government funding for rejuvenation research. And we did this at a very famous landmark in Berlin. You can see the Brandenburger Gate in the back of the picture. And yeah, we had this banner, and it's German, and it says indefinite, long, healthy lives for everyone, basically. That's what we demand. And yeah, so we, yeah, you see us there in front of the Brandenburger Gate demonstrating, and it wasn't that surprising that there was not that much interest from people that walk by, you know. And the few discussions we had with people, a lot of them said, "Oh, well, what is this? We don't want to live longer," and the usual problem. So, yeah, but I mean, I don't know why. I mean, do you have any questions? I don't know what else to report.
Why did you choose the Brandenburg Gate? Is there a special significance, or just because it was a large monument?
Oh, I don't know the history of the Brandenburger Gate, but it's very famous in Berlin. So that's where all the tourists go.
Yes.
So there are a lot of tourists also, but also a lot of from Germany. So
yes, perhaps some of the symbolic significances, the Brandenburg Gate is near where the Berlin Wall used to be, and we are trying to break down a metaphorical wall, the wall of public resistance to the concept of biomedical rejuvenation, the concept of radical life extension. And it looks like, Felix, you've come against that wall in terms of some of the responses that people provided, and that's unfortunate. But have you encountered any sort of original critique, or are these the same old arguments? Oh, won't there be overpopulation or boredom, or won't dictators live forever? Have you heard a single original criticism of life extension during the demonstration?
no, not really. Just the usual comments with overpopulation. So what about overpopulation?
This overpopulation myth really needs to be debunked. I think this is one of the most persistent fallacies, even though birth rates are declining all over the world, and now mainstream demographic projections show the Earth's population as stabilizing around the middle of the century. So it just doesn't seem like a rational response. It seems like one of those hair trigger objections that people make so that they don't have to think about the issue in depth. But we need to continue essentially eroding that resistance and making the points that we have been making. As I've pointed out previously, it's a matter of being persistent. So I salute you, Felix, for being out there, for demonstrating for bringing this cause front and center in terms of people's attention. And then people have the option to pay attention or not, but we hope that over time, more people will pay attention. So thank you very much. Zach, go ahead.
Yeah, if I feel like if I were playing devil's advocate here, I might not like consider that a sufficient answer. Like if we're saying, okay, the world's population is starting to decrease or stabilize, then immediately the counter argument is going to be, okay, but everybody's going to stop dying. So that means it's going to shoot up, right? Do we have an elevator pitch answer for that? Or are we all on the same page of how we'd address that argument?
Right. So there is,
the group.
Yes, there is a paper by Max Moore. It was published circa 2005 called Super Longevity Without Overpopulation, where he makes the point that essentially, even if everybody stopped dying, the rate of population growth would be less than it was during the baby boom of the mid-20th century. So essentially, we've already been there. And during the baby boom, of course, living standards grew dramatically. And there were no massive famines like Paul Ehrlich predicted. Indeed, Edward Hudgens in our chat states that Julian Simon, the great economist, debunked Paul Ehrlich decades ago, where Paul Ehrlich was projecting in the 1970s, 1980s, that there would be imminent shortages of resources, famines, civil wars, civilization would collapse. None of that happened. And Julian Simon made a bet with Paul Ehrlich about the prices of commodities during the 1990s. Paul Ehrlich predicted they would all go up, and they ended up going down despite significant population growth during that time. So I think it's important to note that this is based on a set of old neo-Malthusian assumptions about population growth being exponential while growth in food supply and other resources is only linear, but growth in other resources has not been linear because of technological progress. Our friend Luis Arroyo in the chat writes, society has plenty of resources, enough for everybody. Overpopulation is not an issue. So thank you, Luis. And now let us go to Didier Coeurnelle from Belgium and hear his update.
Woohoo! Go Didier!
Hello, hello, hello. So yes, we had activities in Brussels, but also we had activities in for the Association Française Transhumaniste in Strasbourg. So I will try to share my screen. Let's do that. Okay. Here. Okay. So the first activity was in the in Brussels in the Place du Luxembourg, called Place Lux by the European parliamentarians and people active in the European Parliament. So you see, this is the probably kind of the most well, one of the 3 or 4 most powerful places in the world, probably. And the most one of the most important parliaments of the world. And so we had a small demonstration. You can see here a picture. So HEALS is the Organization for Longevity. And we read in 3 languages, so English, the common language, but also in French and in Dutch, this declaration, the text, the reading is online on the YouTube channel. So, like we demand, sorry, there is a bug there. So we demand increased funding for basic research on the biology of aging. That's the first and most important point. We demand increased educational opportunities, increase access to anonymized health data. And this is especially important, the access to health data at the European level, because at the European level there is a beautiful project called European Health Data Space, who is supposed to make scientists able to access health data of European citizens. The only, let's say, problem is that things are going slow. You know, in at the level. You know that bureaucracy is sometimes slow, especially democratic bureaucracies. We ask also the creation of a regulatory path for longevity therapeutics and increase public information campaign. Okay, so we had some short but interesting discussion. So there was one guy listening to all, and he said, yes, I like your project. So yeah, I'm maybe kind of partly more optimistic than Felix here. Well, we know that the let's say the press concerning longevity is more positive the last months and years. But of course, we also know that there is globally since 2019 a decrease in life expectancy. So maybe it will make kind of a shock, making people really wanting to invest more. And then there was an activity in the beautiful city of Strasbourg. So you have there the big, cathedral, who was, I think, the highest point of the world for constructions during a few decades of centuries. But I'm not sure anymore of this. So anyway, a beautiful place with the most active group of transhumanists in France, the AFT 67. And that's already all for now for me, except to say something for the month of October. So the month of October concerning the activity of HILS and the Association of Transhumanist Technoproc will be really about open AI for longevity. So there are a few people, among them Anton Kulaga and also Maria Koval, and other people who are actively working on a ChatGPT-like project to have hundreds of thousands and even maybe millions of articles for longevity. So there will be on October 13, Friday the 13th October, a first meeting in French about those questions, and then other activities. That's it for me.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Didier, for these updates. Again, it's quite hopeful that these demonstrations transpired, and it looks like at least a few people were swayed by the presence of the demonstrators and the ideas that they put forward. So that is indeed a sign that we can have an impact. Some comments in our chat from some of our participants. Jose writes that economist Thomas Malthus was proved wrong about all of his population and resource arguments since the late 1790s, and yet these fallacies continue to circulate. So I think that's worth emphasizing. And then Zach Richardson writes that there's a chart that he refers to quite a bit when discussing whether prices keep going up with people, and it's called the Simon Abundance Index, again named after the unfortunately now deceased economist Julian Simon. I wish he still were alive. Actually, this is one other reason why death is wrong, because it takes great minds away from being able to contribute ideas further and engage in the public discourse. But I encourage everyone to look up the Simon Abundance Index and also look up Max Moore's essay, Super Longevity Without Overpopulation. I have linked to it here as well. So now let's go to Dr. Jose Cordeiro for his presentation.
¡Viva España!
Viva! Viva! Yes, we had a great activity. In fact, for the last 10 years, well, since 2013, we have been organizing physical or virtual activities, but normally presentations This was the first rally we have organized. We organized a rally and we walked for almost 10 kilometers. This is organized by several groups like Alianza Futurista. That was our major partner on this, started by Sergio Tarrero, which is a party also celebrating 10 years. And it is a first transhumanist party. Gennady, this is important. Alianza Futurista was founded before the US Transhumanist Party, just as a little bit of information. Anyway, we had a great presentation based, as you know, on the International Day of Older Persons, decided by the United Nations in 1990 to celebrate older people during October 1st. We got our permit with the government of Spain. Actually, they sent us several police and police cars to come with us throughout the rally, through the march, through the 10 kilometers. We had police car and police people with us. And our idea is to change the old concept of Spain. Under the Roman Empire, Spain was the country of non plus ultra. There was nothing beyond Spain until Spain discovered America. And then it was changed from non plus ultra to plus ultra, to far beyond. But now we want to have Vita plus ultra, life far beyond. And we are doing many activities in Spain and in Madrid. We invited the president of Altos Labs last year to Madrid, Rick Klausner, and he came with Shinya Yamanaka. We gave him a prize with Shinya Yamanaka and also the Spanish scientist Juan Carlos Ispizua Belmonte. We gave them the equivalent of the Spanish Nobel Prize in Medicine. To the three of them, Rick Klausner from Altos, Shinya Yamanaka from Kyoto University, and Juan Carlos Ispizua Belmonte, before in Salk Institute, and now he leads Altos Labs in La Jolla, San Diego. We talked about the longevity dividend, that politicians need to understand that this is not the most ethical thing we can do to stop aging, to cure aging, to reverse aging, but it is also the most important economic and political decision for anyone. And so we went to the most famous place all over Madrid and Spain, which is the City Hall, where the Real Madrid celebrates every time they win. And that is very often because Real Madrid is the best football team in the world. And so we went to this place and three other landmarks. And we celebrated this time, not football, but International Longevity Day. So this march, this rally lasted 2 hours, and we had 4 points where we gathered. And we had beautiful T-shirts. You can see the T-shirts in front and behind, really beautiful. Many of the participants, the leaders of this, we all had T-shirts. And based also on the ideas of Brian Johnson. You know, he has his black T-shirt, Don't Die. Well, we prefer white T-shirts and Stop Aging. Our T-shirts say in Spanish, Stop Aging, Stop Envejecimiento. We also had balloons. We had hundreds of balloons. In fact, we made 1,000 balloons, but we didn't use them all this time. And this is my mother. As you can see, she's going to be 93 years of age, but she's in top physical and mental shape, and she went to the rally with us. She walked all these kilometers with us, and we stopped in these places, as you can see. First, in the Gate of the Sun, which is the center of Madrid and the center of Spain. Then the Congress, and then we went to the City Hall and the European Parliament. We had about 40 people with us throughout the whole way. But sometimes we even had more. We had 50, 60 people in some places. So we are really proud. And we had three banners in Spanish, of course, talking about the things we were doing. And we began here in the center of all of Spain, Kilometer Zero. The Kilometer Zero is located at the center of Madrid and the center of Spain, and is the place where the presidents of the community of Madrid is located. This is like the state of Madrid. Madrid is both a city and a state. So the state of Madrid, and with that iconic watch, that clock on top of the tower is where we celebrate the new year. And all around the Spanish-speaking world, we count 10 seconds before midnight, and we eat one grape per second. This is a Spanish tradition that we use all over the Spanish world, and we were there. This was our first stop. We had, as I said, first 10, then 20, then 30, then 40 people in our rally. We had 4 TV stations real time. As you can see, 4 TV stations and radios and newspaper. We are going to be tomorrow all over the media, tomorrow in Madrid and in Spain. We had this incredible walk for kilometers with our banners and the people following us and the police protecting us in front and in the bottom. All the nice banners, all the people. Some didn't get t-shirts because we only printed like 50, but we got more people. And this is the Congress of Spain, the Congress of Deputies. We read also the declaration there. We read it 4 times at the presidency of the Community of Madrid, at the Spanish Congress, at the City Hall, and at the European Parliament. We had different people reading the Declaration of Madrid. The one speaking now is Sergio Tarrero, who is the founder of Alianza Futurista. And then we walked around, we kept on walking with the police and with our banners. And this is going to the Cibel's Palace, to the City Hall of Madrid. And a beautiful place, all of us gathering there, reading also our declaration for longevity with our balloons, giving balloons to people, to everybody who joined us also. Really fantastic get together. And then we continued walking, following the police that was opening the space for us in Paseo de la Castellana. And then we continued to the Christopher Columbus Square, and then on the direction to the European Parliament. Also in the back, you can see our beautiful t-shirts. The one on the left, that's my mother, and it says, "We are between the last mortal generation and the first immortal generation. Where do you want to be?" We did a lot of marketing, and that is why we called all the media. This is the European Parliament in Madrid. We also had about 40 people at the end. And we had a big group also of journalists joining later. And we took many pictures. We are making now video clips, and a press release for tomorrow with the pictures and the video, and obviously the declaration that we read. You can see another friend of us is reading the declaration at the European Parliament. And then about 15 of us went to celebrate with a Spanish resveratrol. We drank some Spanish resveratrol to celebrate. This is the declaration that we read. Stop aging, rally for life, stop aging. And we put also a quote from top people, 2 international people like Aubrey de Grey, saying that the first person who will live 150 years has already been born. And also David Sinclair saying that aging is a disease, but a curable disease. And then 2 Spanish top scientists, Juan Carlos Ispizua Belmonte, who before was the executive vice director of the Salk Institute in La Jolla, San Diego, California. And now he's the senior vice president of Altos Labs in San Diego, California. And he said that in 20 years, we will be able to prevent and reverse aging. And finally, a quote from Maria Blasco, who is the director of the Spanish National Cancer Institute and is an expert on telomeres and telomerase, also explaining that we have to cure aging to cure all diseases. So we gave also this declaration to journalists and to passerbys, to all of our participants. We have already been publishing that in press. We already have like 10 newspapers who are quoting our declaration. of longevity, and our rally, our march, and we are also talking about my favorite subject, the death of death, la muerte de la muerte. So anyway, that is a report from Spain, and the police gave us a final challenge. The police said, okay, you have been like 40 people. Why don't you multiply it by 10, 400, or even 300 people next year? And we are taking up that challenge. We expect to have 300 people next year, and hopefully 400 if we can multiply by 10. Anyway, so thank you for all your help in other countries. We need to make this global. We need to make this even more international. We need to make more people aware of this. That is why media is so important. I believe press releases, pictures, videos are so important to massify, to grow our movement. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jose. This is quite an impressive demonstration that you organized, and I agree that the media reach from it is going to be quite impactful and is going to amplify our message considerably. Also, thank you very much for narrating us through the events of the demonstration. It must have been quite exciting to take part. So I really appreciate this. And I wonder if anybody has questions for Jose right now about any aspects of the demonstration or what he learned from it. And, well, I'll start. How do you plan to get 300 or 400 people to participate next year?
Well, to begin with, I told some of our participants they have to do like me, to bring their mother, to bring their father, to bring their partners, to bring their children. So just starting with family. Besides family, bringing friends. And we have a large community. They want to see that this was successful, then they will be more interested. So I do think trusting other people who share our ideas is so important. And also media, with all the incredible media coverage that we have had and that we will have next week, this will call people's attention. And we are going to make this call. We want to multiply by 10 the participants. The police is with us, and the government of Madrid is also with us. In fact, maybe they will adopt our declaration. We left physically. We handed out the declaration at the European Parliament, at the City Hall, at the federal government, and at the Congress of Spain. And tomorrow we will have a new version that we will hand out physically. This will have an impact. Politicians will know that this is real. And also they will understand that Jeff Bezos wants to put money in Spain. Altos Labs, when they began, 25 scientists. Out of those 25 scientists, 5 are Spanish. 5. So many people in Spain working on longevity, interested on longevity, academically, scientifically, also from the investment point of view, and also for a better life. Like my mother, 92, we want everybody to be healthy, youthful all the time. So that is how we plan to grow.
That is splendid. And also the fact that you were able to garner the support of the police, of the local government, that is phenomenal. And I think there's a lot that could be learned from that approach. Indeed, I am impressed that the police challenged you to grow this rally. That is quite something. So thank you, Jose. Any questions for Jose? Zach,
yeah.
Go ahead.
Okay, I got 2. One is, who paid for all the swag? You're definitely geared up more than anybody else with all the t-shirts and balloons. The other question is, I'm wondering how sales of La Muerte de la Muerte are doing in Spanish versus in English.
Okay, Zach, thank you very much for your questions. And we pay for that ourselves. We don't have sponsors, but we are friends. We believe in this. We put our wallet where we put our mouth. So we pay for all of that. Also, we contribute, like some of the journalists and the public relations groups, they are also collaborating with us, and they have many contacts, many journalists. So it is by paying us and by having friends who help us with this. But yes, it still costs money. It still costs money. Indeed, you know, making all these T-shirts, even though they are $10 each one, but it is $10 times 50, or making the balloons. I have a real balloon here.
Just blow it up right during the, oh, there you go.
Yes, we also had our megaphones. We have many things, but yes, we can do that. And then I forgot your second question now.
La Muerte de la Muerte.
Oh, yes.
How are sales doing for it in English versus in Spanish? If you know.
Yeah, sure. Well, in Spanish, it's a fantastic bestseller, close to 100,000 copies. It is on the 6th edition. It is sold, from Mexico to Argentina, from Spain to Peru. It really is a fantastic global bestseller. Also, I am a media personality in Spanish, so that helps. And I give a lot of conferences all the time in Spanish. So it has had a lot of time as well. It has had 5 years, 6 editions. So it has a fantastic track record. In English, just came out. 2 months ago, but it is published by Springer Nature, which is the #1 scientific publisher, owner of Nature magazine. And I think it's doing very well. We will only have numbers after 6 months. This is how publishing houses work, 6 months and 12 months. But if you look at the book reviews in Amazon, it's already close to 100 book reviews, 99% of them 5 stars. So the book is doing very well for what I can see in the media, in Amazon, and on other ranking book companies like Goodreads. Goodreads also does ranking of books. So, for 2 months, I think it's doing incredibly well in English. So I am happy. Thank you for your question. And now it will come in Chinese, published by the government of China. So I have very, very high hopes about the Chinese edition.
Excellent. Well, thank you for those responses. And indeed, we wish that the death of death will spread as widely as possible in every country and every society, so that we can truly push forward this global movement. Now, Zach Varkaris has joined us as well, and he has a few questions for Jose. Zach, you need to unmute.
Hi, Jose. I'm reading your book right now, actually. I've got a couple of questions on it, but I was hoping you were going to have it in the original Greek for me, or Thanatos to Thanato, but, clearly I had to read it in English, but there we go. So, I have a couple of questions. Firstly, I really like the way that in your chapter 3, you've gone for the world's biggest industry, because it's a huge industry. And one of your quotes about the AI chappie, what's his name, Sam Altman, talking about if you can have a pill that can give you 2 years of extra life, it's $100 billion company. Maybe that's something to say about fertility and giving you 5 years of extra life. But one of the things that's interesting about it, this is my question, is that how do you feel about the fact that geopolitics appears to never account for the economic dividend of a population living a longer time and cumulative? So it's almost like you're encouraged to retire at 65, you're encouraged to have children at 25 or whatever the age is. You're very much put into these boxes. But in actual fact, if we're being offered, say we just have to live to 150 years, let's just do the first 150. If we have that, the fact that we have another 50 years of adult life, I mean, it's a very big change of what you can do with that life, especially if you have the functionality to do things with it. How did you account for that in your economic dividends? And how do you think that with your movement that you can get people to buy into that, to realize that you know, you're not over the hill when you're 65. In actual fact, you've got another 65 minimum years to go with the functionality of a fit 35-year-old. How do you intend to sort of get that message across?
Well, first of all, thank you also for the book in Greek. You know, I'm working with you and maybe other colleagues to try to have a Greek edition. I want to have the book already going from a dozen to 24 versions, 24 editions. So Greek is or should be on the line for next year. Your question is very important. And I was last week, I mean, until Friday, I was in Switzerland with Aubrey de Grey and some other people on the Longevity Investors Conference, a very high-level investment conference in Switzerland, just about longevity, only about longevity, because this will be the biggest industry in the world in 20 years. Most of the investors that were participants in Switzerland completely agree 200%. So I think there will be a change of opinion very soon, very, very soon, in economics and in politics. And this is the idea of the longevity dividend, that being healthy is very good economically, and it is even better politically. So politicians soon will understand that it is not that we are going to live 100 years or 200 years in old age, all sick, with huge medical expenses and with continuous pensions. No, the opposite. There will be almost no medical expenses if we are at biological age of 20. And in a world of abundance, where people are young, we don't need pensions. So there will be in the future something very different to pensions and smaller. And also there will be no medical expenditures like today. And politicians need to understand this. That is why we went to the 4 political places on Spain, to the Spanish Parliament, to the European Parliament, to the City Hall of Madrid, and to the government of the state of Madrid. And one of these politicians will hopefully, or more of them, grab this powerful idea, very powerful idea. And with Aubrey de Grey, who is with Melissa King now connected in San Francisco, we are also trying to do longevity scenarios to teach politicians that there is nothing better than invest in health, because health is wealth. Health is wealth, and it is good for economics, it's good for politics, and it is good for people. It is good for you and me. And there will be soon again a change of paradigm, a change of our mental chip, that being old is expensive and bad, and being young actually is going to be healthy and cheap for all of us, because the objective is to live indefinitely young.
Yes, the objective is to live indefinitely young. And I think this is a good transition to Melissa King in San Francisco. Unfortunately, she has said that her phone battery is running a bit low. So I want to hear as much of her update as possible, but we will get back to Zach's questions afterwards. So Melissa, please go ahead. Let's see here.
Okay, thank you. I'm here. And what I'm trying to do is get Walter and Aubrey with me in a place quieter than. Can you hear us?
Yes.
Okay. You just tell me, can you hear us?
Yes, we can.
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, excellent. So what I'm going to do, we had an excellent event here in San Francisco. Walter was my partner in crime organizing it. And of course, Dr. de Grey is with us as well. And so I'm going to have each of them say a few words to you. And I'm sorry about the background noise. The background is quite nice. We've got a lot of wine behind us, as you can see. And let's start with Dr. de Grey.
Hey guys. Hello, everybody. Happy Longevity Day. And yeah, I mean, as you know, the wine is not particularly characteristic of me, but here we are anyway. And I want to thank Melissa and Walter for organizing the little event today. Of course, there are events happening all over the world, and that's fantastic. As many of you have seen, we just announced conference in Dublin for next year. There's also going to be some news in the coming few days about the little declaration that I kind of soft announced in Dublin a couple of months ago. So it's an exciting time to be around. Lots is going on right now, and let's all keep working to make it happen faster.
Thank you, Aubrey, and we'd also love to hear from Walter, following which I'm hopeful that the amazing Gennady can share some of the images from our highly successful today in San Francisco, during which we recruited several members of the public as longevity advocates.
I haven't much to add beyond what Aubrey already said. We're having a great time here. It's a lovely crowd, and it's wonderful to be here. I guess that's all I have to say.
Thank you
Splendid.
so much. Turn off our camera because I just got the low battery 10% remaining message. But thank you for working with me on getting these fine individuals on sooner rather than later. So let's see, camera off, and Gennady, if you during some images there. Those are members of the public that we had join us as we got our coffee. The event started. They were excited about what we were. Well.
Yes. So, Melissa, we're hearing your audio a bit sporadically from time to time. So it was interesting that when you moved the phone to Aubrey and Walter, we could hear them clearly, but please try to narrate through, and we'll see how much we can catch.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Great. I just put my earpiece back in. I'm super glad that it worked for you to hear Aubrey and Walter. So what you're looking at now is a group of members of the public that we recruited to show their longevity advocacy pride. They were very interested in what we were doing as we were grabbing coffees in the Ferry Building at Red Bay Coffee. And if you want to just scroll through any of the images that you were able to get from me, I'm sorry I can't share them myself. Okay, that's our group inside the Ferry Building. Not great because of the lighting in the background, but our group with our signs, getting ready to add a few more members and walk out to the plaza out front. And then we've also been in the back of the Ferry Building. So this is when we walked outside and we're out in front of the Ferry Building. We had our signs and our banners. And I don't know what's next, but I'll tell you what you see. Okay, there we are with our banner and our signs behind the Ferry Building again. Not a ferry in the background, which is too bad, but it is in fact an active ferry building here in San Francisco. Next slide, please. And there, I think you all recognize this gentleman, Dr. Aubrey de Grey, saying that he is a longevity advocate. That's what we had on our signs. And I don't know how many more, there may be just a few more. Yeah, this is another photo of a couple of members of public that Walter recruited to join us. And some of you may know Aaron King, who's there. Also from Longevity Research. And that might be it, Gennady, I'm not sure. Oh, there we are again. This was our final photo as a group. Those of us that were still around, we took a breather. There was a maker's fair going on, and we got some free Topo Chico sparkling water, which was great. And then sat down at this statue of Mahatma Gandhi, which we thought was a wonderful place to be able to close our day. Thank you. Oh, and then actually sitting right out there, we attracted more members of the public. So here you see Walter, many of you from the ILA, from the organization Ilia heads, you know Walter. And then Benedetta Pelosi is a scientist from Italy, PhD from Sweden, who's now here in the Bay Area. And the gentleman in the middle, another member of the public interested in what we were doing here in San Francisco and happy to show his longevity pride.
Wonderful. Well, thank you, Melissa, for narrating us through these images. And I'm pleased to see that you attracted so many members of the public. This is another hopeful sign that our movement is growing and garnering attention. Jose has a question for you. So, Jose, please go ahead.
Well, beautiful pictures, Melissa and Walter and Aaron King, and obviously Aubrey. And because I was with Aubrey just a couple of days ago in Switzerland, he talked about Gandhi. So that picture with the
I
statue of
didn't realize that.
is so fantastic. So maybe Aubrey can remind us about what Gandhi said about the change of ideas. Is Aubrey there? Can he explain what Gandhi said?
He is, and I'm going to go try and have him do that. Give me just a moment. Let me see if I can get Aubrey back.
And get some resveratrol. We were drinking Spanish resveratrol, red wine. You can get California red wine too.
We will definitely get some resveratrol, but I'm going to have Aubrey, if he's willing, get back on camera and talk about what he spoke about related to Gandhi a few days ago, where you were together, Jose, given the photo of the group of us together in front of the statue of Gandhi.
That would be excellent.
That I'm going to take my out, and you're in charge.
Am I? Okay. I have no idea. I assume you can hear me.
Yes.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think that a couple of days ago in Switzerland, the idea of damage repair as an approach for a long is one that was very unorthodox and heretical when I first started talking about it. Really.
So unfortunately, Aubrey, your audio is cutting out. Melissa, maybe we could give Aubrey the headpiece.
Great to meet you. Thank you for coming.
Yeah.
And we can talk about it. Let's all talk about where we're
Just a
going to be
moment.
in place. And I'm happy to be here again or not.
Melissa, could you give Aubrey the headpiece so that he can...
So great to work with you on soon. Dr. Bailey. I look forward to being in touch with you.
Melissa, could you give Aubrey the headpiece because his audio was cutting out? I think we could hear him better with the headpiece if he were to restate his answer.
I bet her phone died.
Yeah, I think we might have lost them, unfortunately. But we will try to see if we can reconnect them. In the meantime, let's go back to Zach Varkaris and his second question for Jose. If he's there.
Well, I didn't really have much more of a question. I was just going to follow up on the other bit that was said before.
Sure.
With regard to extrapolating longevity, but it's not really. It really was more about the understanding of how we can lengthen our economic dividend from having longer lives. That's all it was. So I might have some other questions later on, but not right now.
Well, quickly, let me tell you again, I am convinced there will be a quick mindset change among economists and politicians. In fact, in the Dublin conference, Gennady might remember at the Longevity Summit Dublin that Dr. Andrew Scott from the London School of Economics is writing a new book talking about the longevity dividend and explaining the amount of money that we are going to be producing, extra money that instead of being wasted on health costs is going to be available for other things if we cure aging. There will be no deficit in the budget. There will be extra money. Instead of a deficit, we will have a surplus of money once we cure aging. And he's writing that in a new book that is going to be published soon. So I think we truly are very close to a tipping point of mentality, an important change. Going back to Gandhi, in case that Aubrey cannot reconnect, Gandhi, who had beautiful ideas, phrases about everything, Gandhi said something like all change goes through 4 different stages. First, you are ignored. Then you are ridiculed. Third, you are attacked. And fourth, it is accepted as self-evident. All the way along, it was self-evident. Okay, so I think we are going through that path into the fourth level, from being ignored, from being ridiculed, from being attacked, until we will be accepted as having been right all along the way. This is what Gandhi said.
Jose, I will say this to you in relevant to my personal journey about longevity. As you know, I'm a big believer in this, obviously being in the industry, and the whole concept of how fertility gives you an extra 12 years of life is a slam dunk. But you're right, we are ridiculed and we are ignored and attacked for we don't know what we're doing and you don't understand and you have to do this and you have to overcome a lot of inertia and bureaucracy. So I really appreciate that, and that's very true. And I think the sea change is already happening, very much so. And sometimes the change is already there. I think we've gone from having the visionaries, the Aubrey de Greys of this world, who are the visionaries, to the scientists that sort of do the research, and then the dilettantes that spend a couple of $1 million a year to keep themselves young, to now getting this out to the wider group of people, the general population, and that's what our job is. And I agree with that 100%, actually.
Excellent. Well, I think it is important to consider that our movement is evolving and that evolution is part of its growth. As Zach has pointed out, we are no longer solely at the visionary stage. We are at the implementation stage right now. And what happens at the implementation stage in the coming years will determine whether we personally reach longevity, escape velocity. We have so much great feedback from our YouTube chat, so I will highlight some of the comments from our 2024 vice presidential candidate Daniel Tweed. Earth could easily support a much larger population if the biosphere were being better treated, which we are able to do. And indeed, some of Daniel's campaign messaging emphasizes how we could do that. So thank you very much for that remark. And Edward Hudgens points out that he knew Julian Simon, the eminent economist whose thinking we discussed today. He writes that Paul Ehrlich declared we would have mass starvation in 1970, but he did make other arguments with regard to shortages of other resources or shortages of space. And Edward points out we have plenty of space. The real issue is, of course, what kind of space? Is it habitable space for people? And we do need to make the argument that, yes, we will be able to create more space for human habitation, no matter how many more people are brought into this world. Edward Hudgens also points out that Norman Borlaug's breakthroughs in creating crops that can grow in tough environments helped eliminate starvation. And Norman Borlaug was one of the great heroes of the green agricultural revolution in the mid-20th century. Our friend Vladimir Shakirov writes that he would like to see on the banner of the 2024 demonstration the call to launch a $20 billion per year moonshot addressing aging and age-related diseases demanded by hundreds or thousands of scientists and other people. That's an ambitious goal, but I think it's a good goal. Of course, the U.S. Transhumanist Party in its platform calls for the U.S. federal government to allocate $100 billion per year specifically to anti-aging research. Our legislative director, Jason Geringer, writes that the longevity dividend could possibly be the answer to demographic collapse. If nations start seeing the effects of that, they may realize it's their only hope and get real interested in a moonshot, perhaps of the moonshot sort that Vladimir Shakirov describes. Now, Didier points out an interesting historical fact in regard to Strasbourg. This is about technological progress in the past. The Cathedral of Strasbourg was the world's tallest building from 1647 to 1874 at 142 meters or 466 feet. And actually, I want to show you how this cathedral looked back in the 19th century. So this is a current image of the cathedral, but there is a painting of it from the 19th century that I will show as well, because I think it's important to consider that technology did progress more slowly in prior centuries than it does now. And this is the painting that I had in mind from, I believe, 1851. This was during a time when the cathedral was actually the tallest building in the world. So this is August von Baer, who painted the Strasbourg Cathedral, and it is an impressive building. But then, due to the Industrial Revolution, due to the rapid acceleration of progress that took place in the late 19th century and through the 20th century, many taller buildings were constructed. So just because technology progresses at a certain rate now, or used to progress at a certain rate in the past, does not mean that it's going to continue progressing at that rate. We could hope for an acceleration. So thank you very much for that observation, Didier. Daniel Tweed writes that longevity pride is a great meme. Let's see it adopted if we can. And our foreign ambassador from Togo, Siba Chamuza, writes, oh, what do you think? The concepts healthy longevity and longevity seem not to be understood in exactly the same way by populations. They see through the concept of longevity an old man who is inactive and tired by breathing. However, the idea of putting an end to the biological disaster of aging is a dream of all of humanity. That's an interesting comment about public perception. Perhaps Siba has had some experience of that perception in African countries, in Togo, for example, but the term longevity generates different connotations for different individuals. I just see it as living longer and hopefully living longer in good health, but I like to use other terms as well, like rejuvenation or indefinite life extension or radical life extension. And I don't have a problem with the term immortality either. Edward Hudgens writes that Zach Varkaris raises a central question. Edward is working on the policy reforms in our government retirement system, including Medicare, which is insurance for those over 65. Right now, our system discourages productive activities for older, healthier individuals, and there's a lot of resistance to change. Edward also writes that Jose is absolutely right about teaching politicians about the longevity dividend and indeed longevity. So who would like to provide some feedback regarding any of these comments? Anything that triggers a response from you? Anything that you would like to elaborate on in greater depth? Let's see. Didier, would you like to say something?
Oh, let me go real quick.
Okay, sure.
Yeah, one of the things that at the very beginning when cell phones first came out, there were a lot of people walking around with that brick. And I think that's one of the things we're missing in the longevity movement is that we don't have that big Motorola brick person walking around. And, you know, who's going to be that Motorola brick walking around? And I think that's going to be what convinces the lay public that this is going to be an option, and it triggers that FOMO. So any thoughts on that?
Yes, so who would like to address that question from Art?
I could answer that. I could answer that one. I'll definitely be the brick on that. But you know, you can definitely do that, because you're quite right. It's about sort of seeing things that are for the general people, not sort of something that's regarded as very elitist. And you've got to sort of, it's getting it past that fit with a brick that has 2 hours of battery time, and you can call 5 other people. We're already at that point now, and that's by taking a systemic understanding of certain endocrine systems like fertility and those sort of areas, whereby you can extend a woman's life by 15 years, and that has a significant effect because it means that they can have a chance of the bite of another cherry, and that's a very manageable bite-sized brick chunk, as you'd say. And so I think that's already happening, where, from what we were doing already, that's happening now. But I think you're very right. Someone's got to walk the walk. So it's almost like you've got to get a 55-year-old running, 4-minute miles and saying, hey, I can do what a 25-year-old can do, or 30-year-old can do, or whatever it is, whatever that sort of test will be, in a really real way. Sort of that sort of idea of maybe in some form of sporting achievement or some intellect is slightly different, but in terms of sort of something that's regarded as limiting as you get older, which is usually physical and somewhat emotional as well. And I think that's a very good way of putting it. You need to have people out there who are standard bearers for that, and we're up for that. All of our team is all up for that. We'll be doing that all of next year, in bikinis and looking great. That's for sure. Yeah.
Yes, and of course we had our Virtual Enlightenment Salon with Zach last Sunday. I will include a link to that, and indeed, hopefully, the next time we have a salon where he is our guest of honor, we will see some of the progress that he has made with the women he has worked with to greatly extend their healthy longevity. So we are.
I've already been on that, by the way, for you. I've already actually asked them this week. They said they'll consider it. So I'm giving them a year to come up to that.
Excellent, splendid. So Didier, please go ahead with your comments.
Yes, I like the comment of Siba. Siba, right? What do you think the concepts healthy longevity and longevity seem not to be understood in exactly the same way by populations? I think that one of the biggest problems that we have is that when we are speaking about longevity, people are always thinking about very old people with their health going down slowly. And so we have always to add that we are speaking about healthy longevity. We have to say it again, because for us it is clear that, and maybe we have also to use the words rejuvenation and so on. For us it is clear, but for most people it is not clear, or even more, it is something that they cannot imagine. That's one aspect that I want to say. The second one is about what are our most important goals here during this International Day of Longevity and International Month of Longevity. I think it is first, more money for research, of course. Second, and maybe this is something we didn't say enough, more public results, good or bad. So, because if you have more money for research, but the research are not really published, it's not enough. And then, Aubrey de Grey said already long ago that the longevity movement will maybe be really changed from one day to another. The day that we will have mice living 5 years and more. Well, sadly, it is not today yet, but I think that it should be kind of more important today than it was the last months and years, to have test on longevity of animals, and not only test of about things that prove that you are in good health, well, that the mice or rats or other animals are in good health just after the treatment, and these animals are sacrificed or only examined a few months or weeks after the treatment. So things done like by Aubrey de Grey, this big test on 1,000 mice, should be kind of almost compulsory for me for two reasons. First, because when you don't test on longevity, you don't have good results of scientific research, but also when you can really demonstrate that animals are living longer, we are more, it's something that it's easier to tell to people. That's it for me at the moment.
Yes, thank you very much, Didier, for those comments, and they certainly resonate with me. So I have linked here to the Longevity Escape Velocity Foundation's Robust Mouse Rejuvenation Study #1, which you mentioned, Didier, and this bears emphasis. This is the single most ambitious mouse lifespan study in human history thus far. And it began with 1,000 mice. We are testing not just individual interventions, but combinations of interventions. And the vast majority of the mice are going to be monitored to the end of their lifespan. So there will be no premature cutoff point to this study, which also distinguishes it from a lot of other mouse studies. But we're not done with this study yet. And this study is not going to be the last mouse lifespan study that LEVF performs. There will be a study #2, which is going to test other interventions. Of course, we need a lot more funding to make that study happen. So I would encourage everybody watching to go to levf.org and make a donation. Any amount helps, because this is how we're going to get to this kind of proof of concept that you were talking about, Didier, and that Aubrey de Grey was talking about. The achievement of robust mouse rejuvenation is going to definitely turn heads within the general public, and it is going to attract a lot of attention to our cause. So in our private chat, Zach Varkaris pointed out that it is our job to explain to the general public what we're seeking in terms of longevity, in terms of rejuvenation, in terms of radical life extension, whatever we are using in terms of our terminology. We need to make sure people accurately interpret the meaning. And unfortunately, there are a lot of misinterpretations that happen. So I am sometimes the recipient of skeptical feedback, and I encourage that as well, to get an idea of what the general public is thinking. And I do have a skeptical comment that I got from another medium. I'm not going to say who made that comment, but I would invite some responses to that comment. So this skeptical individual wrote that health is for the wealthy. Healthcare is inherently elitist, especially in this country, the United States. So how would you respond to that in terms of what we're seeking to accomplish, which is healthy longevity, significant life extension, radical life extension for everybody, or for as many people as possible? How would you respond to that criticism? Let's Didier, and then Jose, and then Ilia as well.
Yes. Well, there are many reasons, many answers to this, but the first one is when you take a look at the situation the last 50 years, actually there are no more differences between rich and poor concerning the life expectancy, but less differences, especially between rich countries and poor countries. The differences are decreasing, not increasing. Maybe in some countries, like in the US especially, the differences between rich and poor are increasing, but the biggest problem at the moment in the US is that there is a global decrease of life expectancy. Even maybe in 2020 it was going up again. So that's the first aspect. The second aspect is that if you take a look at countries like European countries where the life expectancy is higher and when social security is working good, the new technology are very fast or even sometimes directly available to everybody because social security is paying for it. And if you have a system where there is a public investment for longevity, it will be, I would say, almost immediately for everybody. If it is organized, let's say, with private money and with patents and so on, yeah, it will not be directly for everybody, but it will be very fast for everybody. And even, let's say, very rich people who could think that they want the products only for themselves, they will be in trouble. If you have a society where longevity is only for rich, it will be a dangerous society for poor people, but also for rich people. So it's not even a good idea for rich people to make it treatments only available for them. And also there is sometimes this idea that it's a bit like if only rich and egoist people are wanting to live longer. We want to live. At least I want people who want to be able to live longer. So not only for myself and I mean rich people and poor people. They want they want their children to live longer, and also they want they want everybody to live longer in most cases. That's in short. But one of the strange things is people who say, oh, okay, it will be only for rich people. Actually they are so they are asking no public money for this, and they make it that it's a bit more for rich people than the people who want to have more public money for it. But also, once again, even if it is progress by, let's say, by private companies, it will percolate because it's a potential public of 7 billion or more, 8 billion inhabitants. So yeah, there are scale economies. And last thing that I forgot to say is what is very expensive is research. The research is very expensive, but after the treatments are not very expensive, especially once again when they are for billions of people. That's it.
Yes, thank you very much, Didier. And now let's hear from Jose.
Well, I like to say that all technologies, when they begin, they are very expensive and very bad. Expensive and bad. Let's talk about mobile phones, cell phones. They were for the millionaires, and they were really bad. They could not even make phone calls all the time. And now everybody in the whole planet who wants a cell phone has a cellular phone. Another example is the genome. The sequencing of the human genome, the first one cost over $3 billion. $3 billion. It was carried out by governments, mostly the US government and some other governments in Europe, Japan. And now it costs hundreds of dollars, and soon everybody will sequence their genome, something that was not even for billionaires, was for governments. And all technologies, again, when they are democratized, when they are massified, they become good and cheap. My friend Ray Kurzweil talks about that in his next book, The Singularity is Nearer. He sent me the manuscript. It is a fantastic book. And he talks about reaching longevity escape velocity by 2030, and rejuvenation technologies for everybody by 2045. This is in his book, The Singularity is Nearer, that will come next summer. And he explains that. But I say that's the same in my book. In The Death of Death, chapter 5 is how much will it cost? And you know the answer? It will be free. It will be free by 2045. Why will it be free? Because, as Didier explained, research is very expensive. But once we know how things work, we massify it. We produce it in big quantities for 8 billion people. And it will be basically free also, because it will be paid by governments and companies, but for the final consumer, for you and I, it will be free, like the COVID vaccines. The COVID vaccines cost billions of dollars to develop. But for us, for the consumers, it was free. It was paid by governments. It was paid by companies. So the first rejuvenation therapies in the 2040s, they will be free. Also, because of the longevity dividend, we need to understand the longevity dividend. Now, we spend 80% of the medical expenditures in the last 5 years of life of the people, and the people still die after 80% of the money in medical expenditures. If we put all that money, 80% of the money, not at the end when you die, but at the beginning so that you don't die, there will be not a deficit, will be a surplus of money. We are talking about incredible numbers. The longevity dividend has been estimated to be $367 trillion for extending the lifespan of people 10 years. $367 trillion. Read Andrew Scott's new book also, where he explains that. So there will be a total change of mind when people understand that not aging is good. If you are healthy, it is cheaper in medical costs and even cheaper in pension funds, because we are moving into a world of abundance. So how much will it cost? Zero. How much did the COVID vaccine cost to the consumer, to us? Zero. How much will sequencing the genome will cost to everybody? Zero. In 5 to 10 years, it will probably be part of Social Security, social insurance. So we will not even pay for the human genome sequencing, even though the first one cost $3 billion. I repeat, $3 billion. In 10 years, it will be part of Social Security, social insurance. It will be free to everybody who wants it. Or it will cost peanuts, like mobile phones. Now, mobile phones in Africa, you can get very good, cheap Chinese mobile phones for $20. $20 a mobile phone today. This is going to happen with longevity therapies. Again, it's chapter 5 of my book. How much will it cost? Zero. In 20 years, it will be free. It will be part of social insurance for everybody, for anyone who wants it. Thank you.
Yes, thank you for that response, Jose. And we have some comments in the chat that echo what you said. Edward Hudgens writes that there has previously been a mindset that smartphones are for the wealthy, but in 15 years, we went from 0 to over 90% of Americans having a smartphone. And the same pattern exists for every technology. These technologies start out as costly beta versions, and then eventually everyone has that technology and access to it if entrepreneurs are free to compete. He writes, look at the poor a century ago versus the poor today. The poor today have TVs, smartphones, refrigerators, and so forth. And Didier also emphasizes that sometimes new health products are directly for everybody, at least in the so-called rich countries. And again, the COVID vaccines are an example of that. So Ilia, let's hear your thoughts on this question.
Yes, thank you. I would really like to throw a pinch of complexity into this optimism. I just finished 2 chapters in a forthcoming book by the Institute for Ethics and Emerging Technologies that will be dedicated to politics of human enhancement. And my 2 chapters about exactly that, the politics of longevity dividend. And the main point, it's not so very simple. There are many complexities involved. What's exactly the cost effectiveness and who exactly will benefit from this longevity dividend? The investors will also be the ones who get the dividends. It's not so simple. And it ties with the question of technologies, health technologies for the wealthy. If those dividends are owned by a certain segment of society, it's not guaranteed that they'll be very easily shared. There is this view that any health technologies will be also automatically cheaper and then trickle down and all that. But you can look at the health care system in the United States and see that's not necessarily the case. There are already health inequalities They are not too easy to reconcile, and more technologies don't necessarily solve it and don't necessarily make the healthcare system cheaper. So we do need to take those problems seriously. We do need to think of complexities and think of solutions in advance. I would side with investing more in public programs that also give entitlements to the public for the results of those research and development programs. So that I think it can be a better solution than just waiting for the technologies to trickle down, or even fighting for the access if they don't trickle down. So I think we should think in advance, think in terms of public funding programs. Generally, even to think about the future distribution of the longevity dividend, the cost effectiveness. Is it guaranteed that the preventive treatments will actually save money? With the existing preventive treatments, it's not to be taken for granted. Let's see what happens later with anti-aging technologies. And speaking about educating politicians about the longevity dividend, what I found in my over 10 years of advocacy, including high-level politicians, they are not very impressed with the longevity dividend argument. They want to understand if it works or if it doesn't work in terms of their actual health, show us the feasibility. So I believe a more effective way of advocacy is actually to explain that, yes, this is a reasonable research program with reasonable chances to produce results for themselves, for their close ones, and in a foreseeable time, rather than explaining that it will be a huge dividend for the state budget. So just, I'm accepting all the longevity dividend concept. I'm accepting that the therapies will be eventually accessible to all of us, but I suggest we think about it in as a more complex issue with more variables involved.
Yes, and I acknowledge certainly the complexities involved and the obstacles that exist sometimes to the dissemination of technologies, the inefficiencies that can exist in healthcare systems in the United States and in other countries as well that may limit people's access to some of the technological breakthroughs that have already arrived or that are to come. And this is why the US Transhumanist Party focuses on policy as much as we do, because it is important to craft policies and to enact reforms on a regulatory level, on an institutional level, so that these barriers can be overcome, so that the pathway from the development of a technology to its ready availability to as many people as possible can be shortened to the greatest extent. And everything you said will be important to keep in mind as we continue deliberating and advocating for suitable policy reforms. Now, I'm curious if Ben Ballweg has a question or a comment for our guests.
I was meeting with my friend over the weekend that is from college and not from the longevity community, and we were talking about Elon Musk and how, sorry if you're listening, Elon, but just kind of like out of touch with his reality being so different from everybody else's on the ground. And then I guess as I'm considering getting into cryonics and that kind of thing, I'm also a little hyper self-conscious. I wonder if I am also out of touch and if I am not understanding of what people are facing and that what we are pursuing as a longevity agenda. Like if I'm out of touch and it's not going to come to everybody like I hope that it does. I wondered if anybody had any responses to that.
Yes, who would like to address Ben's question or concern? Jose?
Very good point, Ben, and I am concerned. Also, let me tell you, I come from the developing world. I was born and grew up in South America, and I understand the realities there are totally different than in North America or in Europe, where I currently live. So I have that social consciousness, which is so important because we want to leave the whole of humanity, to leave no one behind, when the tide rises, that it rises, all the boats, all of us go together into the future. But maybe some people will still oppose for different religions, even religious points of view, like, you know, the Amish, they live like 200 years into the past. Or in South America, where I grew up, there are some Aboriginal groups that they don't want anything out of our modern world. They don't even want to speak the international languages. They don't want to use clothes. They don't want to live in cities. They don't want education or health. So I am concerned about all those realities, but I think that most of humanity will move forward because this is positive. If we cure all diseases, this will make us even wealthier. As I like to say, health is wealth. And people will understand this more and more around the planet. And aging is the common enemy of humanity. Even throughout the planet, 2/3 of people die of aging. And in wealthy countries, OECD countries, including Europe, Japan, the USA, Canada, Australia, 90% of people die of age-related diseases. 90%. That means that if you add everything else, which is terrorism, wars, malaria, AIDS, accidents, homicides, suicides, etc., add all of that, and it is only 10% of the causes of death. 90% of people in advanced countries die of age-related diseases. So the common enemy, and not only in richer countries, even in Africa today, more people are dying of aging than of any other disease. So this is the common enemy of humanity. It's not climate change. It is not the Russians. It's not religion. The enemy of all of humanity is one and only: aging and death. And it's what causes most suffering in the planet. So I think more people will understand this, and we will change our point of view about the future. And also because in 10 years, I think we are going to have a colony in the moon and on planet Mars. This will make us think differently. We will see that there are no borders, that our tiny planet is really tiny. As Carl Sagan said in Cosmos TV series and in his books, we live in a tiny blue spot, in a dot in the universe, in a huge universe. So I think we will understand life differently once we are on the moon and once we are on planet Mars. So I'm really excited that we will be going to Mars, and we will watch that live, the whole planet. When the first human walks on Mars, the whole planet will see it live. Not when Jesus Christ walked on water. We don't even know if Jesus Christ walked on water at all. But we will know when someone walks on planet Mars. And this will change everything. I'm convinced, everything. And this is happening in 10 years. In 10 years. Actually, in 2 years, we will have humans walking back on the moon. And in 10 years, walking on planet Mars. So Elon Musk, I think he's a visionary. He's a man of the future. He's a person of the 21st century living today. We should be grateful for people with him, like him, who are visionary, not in everything, of course. Like he still thinks that death is okay. And he has said that he would like to die on Mars, but not on landing, not arriving on Mars, for example. But anyway, so I admire visionaries, and I think Elon Musk is a visionary, and thanks to him we will have humans on Mars in 1 decade, and that will change everything. It will change religions, it will change countries, it will change politics, economics. Everything will change in 10 years.
Yes, thank you, Jose. And along with our support for radical life extension, the U.S. Transhumanist Party strongly supports space exploration and space settlement precisely for the reasons that you outlined. I think we need to pursue progress simultaneously in all of these areas. Now, in regard to the concern that Ben raised, I would like to add a concern from our skeptical viewer who points out that the average reading level in the US is that of a 4th grader, and sometimes that is not high enough for people to be able to understand emerging technologies or their implications or even the arguments in favor of longevity that we have discussed here. And I think it is important to consider, how do we reach those people? How do we get them on our side? Or at least, how do we ensure that they do not oppose us, that they do not entertain ridiculous conspiracy theories about the mark of the beast or some nefarious shadowy elite or whatnot, that unfortunately such people could be susceptible to. So if there are any thoughts about how do we reach people with limited educational attainments, how do we get them to see the validity of our message and the kind of world that we seek to bring about? Ilia, please go ahead.
Yes, that's a problem that's very, very dear to me. I believe we should rephrase the question, not how do we reach them, how do we recruit them, that maybe they vote for us, maybe they march in our next meetings, and our next demonstrations with slogans. Actually, I think the question is, how do we increase their education? Because I believe that life extension is very much dependent on the level of our intellectual capacity and our education. That's the basis. Before any investment schemes and the longevity dividends, are actually people smart enough to create longevity therapies? And that's why I believe that education, raising intellectual level, raising a general education level is the top priority. So they read not as for graders, at least as at the university level, for us all to develop.
Yes, thank you very much for that response, Ilia. And I would also like to thank our friend Alan Crowley for his generous contribution today. He writes, thanks to the panel and chat for making this another fantastic salon today, and to all those fourth graders that can read. Indeed, there are some precocious fourth graders out there. There are some precocious children out there who I hope are watching this salon. And even if they're not watching this salon, get them this book, Death is Wrong, which is the thus far only children's book on indefinite human life extension. And there are children who have read this book back in 2013, 2014, who are teenagers or adults now and who can be influencing the world in beneficial ways. So we do like to help people attain more education and attain skill sets that are helpful to our movement. And we have a young lady, her name is written in Japanese characters, who is personally interested in pursuing longevity, and she even says immortality research in an academic setting. And she writes, "Dear speakers, thank you for sharing the enlightening information on the demonstrations and latest updates on your research progress. Could you advise me on how I should schedule my study path in the following subjects?" And she lists a number of the subjects. She says she has a thirst for knowledge in all of them: futurology, neuroscience, biology, including biotechnology and genetics, computer science, including AI, and mechatronics or neurotechnology. And she also wonders, if time and money is not a problem, how do you advise me to structure my study path from bachelor's? She's currently pursuing a double major and a double minor, and then she is interested in a master's and PhD. So this young lady, I infer, is either in her late teens or early 20s. So she would have been a child when I wrote Death is Wrong, but some serious ambition here. So how would you help her? What advice would you give her? Because if she succeeds in her studies, she could be a pivotal contributor to our movement. Does anyone have any suggestions?
If I may again?
Yes, Ilia, please go ahead.
My general advice is just to set this goal of healthy life extension, and you'll figure it out, because all your skills will set into place. Obviously, a life extension can benefit from any skill, from any technology. All they can converge toward this goal. Just set this goal and see how you can apply those skills. There's no way, a program, an education program, you can direct people. That will be the most beneficial for life extension. But as long as you set this goal, you'll think of methods, maybe synergies with different methods. We see a lot of very high IQ people who don't contribute much or anything to developing life extension technology specifically. though they may be successful in other areas. So it all depends on your goals, on your values. So get the life extension values, and the skills will fall in place.
Yes, thank you very much, Ilia. And Jose, please go ahead.
Well, first of all, glad that you are interested in longevity. I lived 3 years in Tokyo. I love Japan, but sadly, Japan is the first nation that has begun a demographic implosion. The population of Japan, as you are certainly aware, will decrease by less than half of what it is today unless we stop aging and death. Japan has the highest life expectancy in the planet, followed by Switzerland, Singapore, and Spain. Spain has the fourth largest life expectancy and the highest in the European Union. But number one is Japan. That's very good. But also average life expectancy is very high. If I'm not mistaken, it is like 43 years now, average age today in Japan. And that means that many women cannot conceive anymore. That is part of the demographic implosion of Japan, because even women who want to conceive, it is very difficult unless they use technology. But on the good side, Japan is a leading country on anti-aging. Shinya Yamanaka from Kyoto University is the one who discovered induced pluripotent stem cells. I had the pleasure, as you saw in my presentation, to invite him to Madrid. We gave him an award here in Madrid. We are collaborating with him in Kyoto University, some of the teams in Spain. So he's a great person, but there are many other groups in Japan, because Japan is suffering this demographic implosion and has so many people who are very longevous. But Japan is also starting human clinical trials on eye rejuvenation, macular rejuvenation. And my book is coming out next January in Japanese. So you can read my book in Japanese. You can contact people from Kyoto University and many other research centers, because Japan is also leading the way to reverse aging. And so this is the best time for you to go into longevity and in Japan, a beautiful country that I love.
Thank you very much, Jose. Any other advice from our panel to the young lady with a Japanese name? Let's see. And yes, go ahead.
Yeah, very short. Certainly, to have studies related to all biological aspects, but also to all, let's say, artificial intelligence aspects, because the evolution is almost certainly these two aspects related. And I would say also, if you want to make a useful work, I think it is very important to have an kind of an open source way to work and to really share your knowledge with other people. But okay, that's it. Not very original, but also maybe at the moment the big question for me, even if it is not only for students, the big question for me is to understand why, since 2019, we don't have any more rise of life expectancy in the world, but we have a stagnation or even a decrease. You know, I really think this is the question that longevists should ask to themselves. I know that people like Jose are saying, oh, it will come back. But okay, at the moment, it's still not coming back. 2020 was the first year since the World War II that there was a decrease, but 2021 was also a decrease. 2022 was also a year of decrease. So we have already 3 years in a row. And yeah, there are some good signs, but there are also some bad signs. And once again, for me, this is the problem that we have today. Well, in the future, maybe we will have other good situations, but the problem that we have today is we have medical progress, we have scientific progress, we have technological progress, but we don't have a progress in longevity, we don't have a progress in healthy longevity, we don't have a progress in wellness. And yeah, why? One of my theories is because we are making things more complex. So we are becoming unable to create things, but we create bureaucracies, but bureaucracies not only for administrations, but also in companies, also in organizations. Yeah, that's it.
Yes, and
We
thank you
also,
for
like
those.
Ilia, not always positive.
Well, thank you for those observations, Didier. And this is an important subject to delve into. We had a great Virtual Enlightenment Salon on May 15th, 2022 with you on this, called How to Reverse the Decline in Life Expectancy. And I would encourage people to watch that salon for a thorough discussion of the subject. But yes, this is
And
deserving.
If I can interrupt you, I remember in 2022, some people were saying, don't worry, no, it's coming back. But we are now in 2023, and for 2022, we know now that it's not coming back. Maybe 2023, but maybe 2024, but yeah. It's not yet there is no yet a rebound.
And I think one major reason for this is the COVID pandemic is truly not over yet, and COVID continues to kill large numbers of people. And the other significant contributing factor is deaths of despair, including those that have been precipitated by the pandemic and the harsh living conditions that it brought about for many. But in the United States, this is a tremendous problem, especially among middle-aged Caucasian residents of the United States who are unfortunately succumbing in greater proportions to alcoholism, drug use, suicide, and all of those are problems that we could also make a difference in by communicating the tremendous value of life. I truly believe that if I am able to have a one-on-one conversation with a person who entertains this kind of self-destructive behavior, I could persuade them to cease doing that, or at least to not kill themselves. And I think we should all be ready to spread the message of life and hopefully save some lives in the process. Now, we only have about 2 minutes left in our Virtual Enlightenment Salon, and there will be an audio chat on Discord. So anybody who wants to continue this conversation, including the young lady who would like educational guidance, please join us in the Discord server. I think Zach and Daniel Tweed are going to facilitate that conversation. Our friend Alan Crowley also writes that there are many paths to follow in terms of education. The UNT Health Science Center has very good programs in health and computer science and entrepreneurship, and our U.S. Transhumanist Party Discord is a good resource for finding more. And he also echoes the answers that have been provided. Get busy and do the part you love the most and keep working. That is great advice. Jason Geringer writes that good answers were provided. People can help in different ways. It depends on the individual's talents. And now we just have 1 minute remaining. I would like to thank all of our panelists for an excellent overview, a tour de force of the demonstrations that took place on International Longevity Day today. And I hope these can be an example for others as to what can be done to shift public opinion toward acceptance of radical life extension in our lifetimes. And I would like to offer in the last 30 seconds to whomever would like to make a powerful closing statement. Please do that.
I want to say that we live in the most incredible times. This is the best time to be alive and to remain alive. We are between the last mortal generation and the first immortal generation. This is the time to stay alive. And like my friend Ray Kurzweil says, we should be reaching longevity escape velocity by 2030, and rejuvenation technologies for everyone, free, this is an important word, free, by 2045. So remain alive, hang on in there until 2030 and 2045. Live long and prosper always.
Yes, remain alive, as Brian Johnson would say, don't die, and indeed let us all live long and prosper.
And health